All right, welcome to episode 66 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news, as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez, joined by my co-hosts today, Gabe Wilkins and Miles Porter. How we doing, guys? How we doing, Gabe?
Can't complain, man. It's always beautiful and pleasure to talk about baseball. A lot of big time news done broke around the league, particularly out of a major market where they have let it be known that it is levels to success and that they are not satisfied with where they currently are as a franchise, even if their minor league system is on the upswing.
Yeah, and then I know you're talking about the Chaim Bloom firing and the Red Sox, and we'll get to that for sure when we go around the league. But yeah, we plenty of stuff to talk about today, as always, with the Cubs and the White Sox. But Miles, how you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. Lots. There's a lot to talk about in the baseball world right now with Yankees, Red Sox, Yankees losing prospects to injuries. So much,
Yeah.
so much to touch on here, man. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and you're in full offseason mode, right, Miles? With the Milwaukee Jaguars, you're in full offseason mode now, right?
Yeah, you know, definitely enjoying the off season, but I ramp it up again this weekend and start my hitting
Oh,
drills.
bet.
We're just going straight through up until 2024. So I'm
Hell
excited
yeah. No,
to get it going.
it's
I
good.
can sit down for so long. Yeah.
Grind don't stop, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's been nice though. It's been nice being able to spend time with my girlfriend on the weekends. Yeah. So, but I'm ready. I'm definitely ready to get it going again too.
Hell yeah. A little break never hurt nobody, so that's good. Hey, at least you get back
Yeah.
into it then. At least you get back into it this weekend, so that's good to hear. So we'll start things off, of course, like we always do in Chicago, and on the north side, the Cubs sitting at 78 and 69 just had a rough little bit of a few days with a couple back-to-back series losses. So we'll talk about that. The White Sox sitting at 55 and 90 right now, and they haven't won a series since August 7th to the 9th, so that's pretty tough. But plenty of stuff to talk about there that I want to ask Gabe, of course, when it comes to guys being sent down and all that. But today we'll talk about the Cubs first. Like I said, 70 and 69, 4 games back of the Brewers, 2 ahead of the Cardinals, of the Arizona Diamondbacks in the second spot of the wild card race. Overall, things are looking up in the sense of, if you keep on winning, keep on, put your head down, they'll be in the playoffs. But at the same time, they just, lost back-to-back series. They got, Edward Alzolay is on the IL on the 15-day IL. Jamer Candelario is also on the IL. So, the thing about this team is that, they have, plenty of guys that can, like guys like PCA that came up and all that, which we'll definitely talk about as well. But over the last week, Miles, how have you felt about this Cubs team? Because obviously, it's been a little bit of frustrating stretch as they lost back-to-back series, but that at the end of the day, they didn't necessarily, the standings didn't change that much. So they're still in the running for the Central and still holding that 2-game lead in the wild card race. How do you feel?
I mean, still feeling really good about the boys, and I think we've kind of gotten an opportunity here for us to kind of come off of this really rough stretch, and for the Diamondbacks to struggle the way that they did in New York recently. Kind of keeps us in it. Not even kind of. We're still in it because this team has been struggling. So these things happen where a hot team is gonna run into its hurdles, and I think now going into Arizona, headed to Phoenix, now's the time to really turn it on. And it's unfortunate that we got some guys down right now, but I'd rather them be down right now than be unavailable come the playoffs, come the wild card. I'm also hoping Canario also gets another opportunity here with guys going down. Now, I don't know what the specific reason is to call him up, not give him any ABs, and send him down. I don't know what analytics kind of go into that. From a fan looking in, from a player's perspective, looking from the outside in, that's bullshit. And so it doesn't, I don't know what strategy goes on into that, because from our point of view, we're seeing a lot of surface level things. Maybe from their point of view, there must be some sort of weird strategy. To me, it just looks stupid. You call this kid up to not really give him an opportunity and send him down for reasons I still don't understand. And so, aside from that, I'm very proud of how this ball club continues to battle. We came off of a series in Colorado that we should have taken care of, but things happen. Even Ian makes errors in the outfield, and whatever the case may be, it's baseball at the end of the day. Now it's kind of time to turn the page and turn it on in Arizona. Big series.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and yeah, you brought it up with Canario. We were gonna get to that for sure. I mean, dude, like, I agree. I completely agree. Makes no sense to me. And I mean, David Ross had these comments, and Gabe, you can comment on this too when you speak. But I mean, with David Ross, he said that they're gonna, like he said this before earlier. I think maybe later in August, he's gonna play the guys who got them there. Okay. But it's still strange to me that you're not even like a pinch hit. When you're giving at bats to Patrick Wisdom, when you're giving at bats to Miles Mastroboni, still kind of strange to me.
The guy got you there, Ross. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people were saying too. That if that was the case, because he also said earlier this week, he said that they're not trying to develop players now. Like that's not their goal, to develop players. And which really is really odd, because you're currently developing Javier Assad, you're developing Jordan Wicks, so it's a strange thing to say. So yeah, I mean, I'll get your thoughts. I gave overall thoughts on the Cubs recently, and just those comments from David Ross, because that was one of the main things I was thinking about. Because at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with David Ross. I know a lot of people, like, every time the Cubs lose, they want his head. But I definitely don't agree with that. But he has obviously put himself in a bind when he says certain things like this. So yeah, what are your thoughts overall right now?
Well, first off, I know a lot of people that want David Ross head after every loss.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who feel like you feel, Saul and Miles. I know a ton of people that are Cub fans that feel that way. And it's they have not hidden how they felt about that. And I understand, because you talk about how you want to play the guys that got you there. But with all due respect to Patrick Wisdom, like, he has 20 plus homers, but he batting under 250. And he's a strikeout machine. And lack of play discipline ain't there sometimes. Miles Mastroboni, that was the guy that got you there. As Miles said, like, your main spark plugs in this lineup has been Bellinger, Horner, Happ, those guys. And it was the development of these young pitchers that got them to this point. Take that process with your hitters. And in a pennant race, in a playoff race, sometimes you have to put the young talent in the game to make an impact, because that's really where you're going to find out what they made of. It's not every day when you're a prospect that you could get called into the thick of a pennant race. We just saw the Orioles call up Heston Kjerstad at the top of this morning. He's going to play in Baltimore. They brought him up for a reason. Alex Canario, I do believe he deserves some playing time. You saw what playing Pete Crow-Armstrong did for you. Even though the bat is yet to play, that glove is elite. And that glove kept you in some ball games, and it helped you win a game in Colorado, a place in which you've struggled, like many teams do, in a high altitude where the ball flies a country mile. So when I look at that, I don't understand that at all. And we talked about this last week, bro. Like, at some point, you got to trust these guys. And you playing with house money. You don't have nothing to lose. You're 2.5 games up for the second wild card spot on San Francisco. But Arizona's coming. And even though they've lost 3 in a row, this series, after losing 3 out of 4 to Arizona last weekend and losing 2 out of 3 on the road in Colorado, this is a huge series that can make or break you. So you're going to have to do some things that you may not feel comfortable doing just to see how far your team can go, especially now when you've lost Candelario and Albert Alzolay, who was doing tremendous work out of the bullpen and save situations for you. So I don't understand that at all. But as nice as it's been to see the Cubs play solid baseball, man, they shot themselves in the foot, I feel like, a few times against Colorado, man. And, and, and not just against Colorado, even in the series where they split with Cincinnati. And it's getting to a point now where it's like Michael Jordan said in The Last Dance. It's nut cruncher time. You know, it's either time to put up or shut up. So I'm curious to see how these young guys play. And it's my hope that David Ross finds a way to not only manage that bullpen effectively, but also finds a way to insert young guys into the lineup that warrant playing time. Not just because they're young, but these are guys that have proven themselves at the minor league level that they're capable of being on this level and that they have what it takes to succeed.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as you mentioned, the bullpen, you've seen a little bit of the cracks as, like, you know, they've been a little bit more vulnerable lately. But it's because guys like, you know, as they, you know, I've heard this from multiple Cubs fans. I've seen this everywhere. You know, these guys are not used to pitching, you know, in September. You know, these are guys like, even guys like Justin Steele, like, you know, they're not used to pitching this long, having this many innings. Guy like Mark Leiter Jr., you know, his first year in the bullpen, you know, as you know, borderline, you know, setup man. You know, his splitter, which is his best pitch, I guess, is also, I've heard, has lost some break to it. So, you know, guys are struggling, and like, good to have Michael Fulmer back, you know, in there. He closed out, you know, the only win in Colorado. But yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, it really is time, like, you know, to do something about, you know, these teams that are behind you, you know, try to put these teams away. Cause if you can't, you know, one bad week and you're out of the playoff picture. So, you know, that's where things are at right now. And I think, you know, Cubs have been good about bouncing back from series losses. But it was a little disappointing that they weren't able to bounce back from the Arizona one in Colorado, despite, as you say, a tough play anyways. I understand, but it's a really bad Colorado Rockies team to where, like, you should have at least won, you know, 2 out of 3, and you could have easily gotten swept because that first game they came back in the top of the 9th inning. So it's really embarrassing, honest. I'm not gonna lie that they had to do all that against Colorado, but yeah, this
Those
Arizona
things
series
piss
is
me
huge.
off, bro.
Yeah,
And
go
I
ahead.
feel like I see it sometimes in like certain youth sports as well, in terms of just giving guys opportunity.
Yeah.
When it's like the crunch time of the season, kind of like what Gabe says, bro, put these guys out there, give them an opportunity to prove themselves. What it was like yesterday or the day before, where we're pinch hitting Pete Crow-Armstrong for Yan Gomes. Yan Gomes has been great for us this entire season, but at the same time, if I'm a manager, I'm like, okay, let me see what you got in this moment. Let me see it.
Exactly.
That's just annoying to me, bro. I hate this stingy ass like mentality that some of these coaches and managers have, where it's like, stick with your guys, that's fine, but don't sell empty promises like that. This is, it's so stupid to me. And it's because it's not just an MLB thing. I've seen it in college ball. I've seen it in high school ball. It's so dumb. It happened to me. It's dumb. Give guys chances. You're winning. Your team's going to be just fine. But at the same time, homie, stop lying to these kids. Stop lying to these players. I really haven't been that frustrated with the Cubs all year, regardless of like their struggles or whatever the case may be. To me, that's just not fair, because if the Orioles are freaking calling up guys in a season where they're dominating the MLB, the Cubs have no reason to not do that. If you think that Patrick Wisdom is one of your guys, it's got to be this point, your priorities are very, very off at the moment. That's all.
And to add to your point on that, man, real quickly, this is the new wave across Major League Baseball. Think about where the Cincinnati Reds were to start the year until they brought up Ellie De La Cruz. And then they followed that up once they found some success with him, bringing up Noel V. Marte, Christian Encarnacion Strand, and those boys, man. Like, and look where they at. They in the thick of the wild card race. And this was a team that we didn't expect much from going into the season. But we knew that the young kids were coming. And what did those young kids do? They injected life into that ball club. They came out, competed every day. And what do you know? They're in the thick of the wild card race, and this is going to be one of the top teams in the National League that a lot of fans look forward to watching in 2024. You got to do that sometime with these teams, especially in a 162-game season where it's a war of attrition, and guys are going to fall down left and right.
Yeah, and it, you know, yeah, you're right. And I think, you know, to Miles's point, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, there seems to be like some kind of either miscommunication or something, because, why bring up guys if you're not going to utilize them, right? It's just it doesn't make any sense because it's almost like a wasted roster spot if you're going to bring Canadio up and not give him an at bat at all. Because Tucker Barnhart had that like last man on the roster spot, and we saw him start. We saw him have pinch hit situations. So there's like, to me, very odd. No excuse not to put Canadio in even for an at bat. And like I said this on a previous show as well. I understand Canadio is not a PCA guy. PCA, as you can tell, came up. He's getting some at bats. I get it. But at the same time, it's a younger guy, a guy that the league's not familiar with, a guy that came up on like a 12 game on base streak. Like, it just makes no sense to me. Like, give him like not why not? You give him a chance. Mike Talkman has like gone way down from what he was doing in July. So no excuse there. I understand Mike Talkman is out. He gives great at bats. I understand he gets on base. Understand, but it doesn't make any sense. Why not give these guys a shot? You know what I mean? And like, and you mentioned Wisdom as well. Like, dude, like he hits home runs, but that's literally all he does. And I understand in a spot where like it's a left-hander up there, or like you're down by one, something like that. It's different. Situations are different, but man, it's just strange to me. So that's why, I had to bring it up, because I don't know what exactly their aim is. I don't really see, I don't know if it's Jed Hoyer and David Ross that are kind of, having, opposite, thoughts there. Who knows? But I guess we'll see down the stretch, because it's going to be, yeah, like you said, it's going to be a really important stretch coming up. The rest of the season is, but this series in particular against Arizona, because of, Arizona is chasing the Cubs, and Arizona lost again. So they're tied for that third spot. The Cubs are ahead of that third spot by 2.5 games. So that's a positive from today. Brewers were off as well today, as were the Cubs. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting, last couple of weeks to see, what these guys can do. Because a guy like PCA, as we saw, as you mentioned, Gabe, his defense is electric. And if he can just add some clutch base hits in there, I mean, it changes the whole thing. So I think we'll see that there. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, it's gonna be intense the last couple of weeks. They got Arizona for 3 at Arizona, then 3 against Pittsburgh. So if they could come up with the series win in Arizona, win 2 out of 3 or something, you're going to face Pittsburgh, a team you've only lost 2 once this year. So hopefully that goes well. But we'll shift our focus now to the south side of Chicago, where the White Sox are 55-90, and like I said, there's some things that have been gone on there that I want to ask Gabe about. For example, Oscar Colas was sent down. The Sox recalled Carlos Perez. Oscar Colas was slashing 219, 253, and 331 with a weighted runs created plus of 52 this season. So not great, but it's one of those things where I don't know why you wouldn't just leave him off here for the rest of the season, just to see what, why not, even in the bench, even if you want to bench. But, Gabe, what are your thoughts on that? I know it's nothing like game changing, but I did want your take on that, because Oscar Colas is technically a guy, that's going to be part of the Sox future, that they hope is part of the future. But what do you think about his performance this year and just sending him down in general?
I think Oscar Colas had a lot of pressure on him coming into the season. Mm-hmm. He was a guy that was raking through his first 9 games at AAA Charlotte when he got called up to AAA late in the season last year, and he moved up rather quickly in the minor league system and was a key international signing a few years ago that a lot of White Sox fans were banking on becoming the next great right fielder for this ball club. However, he struggled early in the season. His plate discipline wasn't up to par, not being able to lay off speed pitches, and therefore he was striking out at a high clip. Yes, he showcased flashes of what he could do when he was locked in fully, such as showcasing a power here and there, very seldomly, but also showcasing a rifle for an arm in right field, nabbing guys. But then he also had stretches where he was missing a cutoff man. And these were the reasons why he got sent down the first time. Got sent down early May, came back early July. You still see some of the same flashes of potential that can make him great, but at the same time, base running mishaps, not hitting a cutoff man, almost getting Elvis Andrus killed the other day in Detroit. not communicating on a infield fly, what have you. So like when you see these things, it's not hard to understand why he got sent back a second time. However, you say that you see him as being a part of the White Sox future. So I don't know at this point. And I think Chris Getz is trying to send a message to these guys. Like, look, if you're not going to play the game fundamentally sound at the big league level, then you need to go down and refine some things within your game. The only thing that I don't like when it comes to how they handle Colas, and I know this isn't all on Chris Getz, is Colas was a guy that was seen by Rick Hahn as the future right fielder of the White Sox. But the one thing I don't like about it is you're affecting his confidence in some way. Because what did you really have to lose by playing him at this point? Mm-hmm. Not only what did you have to lose, but like you said, if you wanted to bench him, you could bench him. Mm-hmm. I don't mind him bringing up Carlos Perez, but if you're going to bring up Carlos Perez, right, then why in the hell is Yasmani Grandal still around? Because we all know when 2023 comes to an end, or the season that is for the White Sox this year, we know Yasmani Grandal will not be back on 35th and Shields next season. So why not see what you have in all of these young players and keep Colas up here? Because the minor league season in AAA is ending next week. So what are you going to do after that?
Yeah, it's that's what I was thinking too, is like the fact that, there's not much left in the season. Why not give him, some more at bats here, and then next year start him in AAA, whatever you want to do, right? So that's the only reason why I was a little bit like, with some of the guys on the roster, why not? But Miles, what are your thoughts on this situation, as well as just like, how do you think that affects the player's psyche, in the sense of like being sent down, and maybe who knows how Colas is like thinking right now. Maybe he sees this as something very negative. Maybe he thinks that they're giving up on him. Who knows, right? Who knows how he's thinking on this particular situation? But Miles, what do you think about the Oscar Colas as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's a message, and he's still fairly young at 24 years old. I really like a point that Gabe made in terms of Getz kind of sending a message. This is a team that now, you're just playing out the season, and really you're just preparing for next year. At this point, you're just trying to finish the season strong, and it's good, to be willing to send down young guys like that who aren't performing, who aren't going about the game correctly. That's really good. And hopefully for Colas, he's able to kind of figure that out. Like this point was just made that there's only about a week left in the minor league season, and so not much going on there. Once he is sent down, and once that season's over, it's on him to work on these things in the offseason. If the Sox decide to maybe bring him up before the season ends, it's not really any point in doing that at this point. I think it's important that they kind of reiterate the point as to why this happened to him specifically, and I hope that there's some sort of understanding going on there. With a young player like that, you don't want to completely diminish their, kind of like their enthusiasm, their confidence. You want them to be confident. You also want to make a very strong point to them, being like, hey, the brand of baseball that you are playing is not working. We are a team that is not working, and changes are going to be made. And so this train is operating correctly. So, I hope that his mind is in the right place, and I hope this isn't like too hard on him. Really, him being sent down is he's not really missing much going forward. So if I'm him, my mentality is getting better for next year.
Yeah, yep. And I hopefully it works out for him, and hopefully he's able to come back and be a better player for it, and yeah, you're right. They might actually call him up right once the minor league season officially over. Who knows what's going to happen there? But one other thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that we talked about it last week, Gabe, but with Michael Kopech, they did put him in the bullpen. And he's had a few appearances, not necessarily the greatest appearances, but he's getting used to it. And we see some of the the changes in miles per hour. and all that stuff. But Gabe, what have you thought so far on him as a reliever?
I think he looks more comfortable out there as a reliever.
He does.
But however, I feel like he's still making some of the same mistakes as a reliever that he made as a starter, and that's what's kind of been getting to him. Now he's only gave up 2 earned runs, but like a lot of that is a byproduct of him leaving pitches up, and it's about location for him. But he looks more comfortable. I just don't know exactly. Like I said last week, what will his role be? If it's in the bullpen, is he a guy that you want to be a long relief guy who comes in for a starter after, he's unable to go 5 innings or whatever and pitch from like the 5th through the 7th? Or do you view him as a setup man that can hold it down for you between the 7th and 8th innings of games? Or do you view him as your shutdown closer, which is something that Chris Getz in the front office is going to have to look to address among a myriad of issues, especially with Liam Hendriks out for the next 12 to 14 months due to Tommy John surgery.
Yeah. So, you are right also, by the way, and I'll say he does look very comfortable in there compared to as a starter. But I mean, yeah, I saw that, the highlights from when they played the Tigers and he gave up, it was a home run to Kerry Carpenter. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things also too, is where, maybe he also needs to get used to it as well, overall. So, but I still see him as, hopefully being as effective as he can be from the bullpen, even though, Grifol has said, the fact that, they're obviously not giving up on him as a starter. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But, Miles, what do you think about that situation in general with Kopech? How do you see him? Do you see him as a starter reliever in the future? Because he struggled a lot as a starter, as we talked about last week. But, as a reliever, he could bring a lot to the table, even as, like, say, a closer as well, too. With Liam Hendriks being out, who knows what they're going to do there. So, what do you think about that situation?
I would love to see him coming out of the pen and he kind of redefined his game a little bit. He has the stuff, kind of like you said, to be like a Liam Hendriks kind of player. Very electric pitcher, very powerful stuff. I would love that. I would love to see that. And I think that's always, I love that is still, kind of a possibility for him instead of him, possibly being DFA'd in the future, whatever the case may be. This is someone who can still be very, very special to the White Sox or any ball club coming out of the pen. And at this point, I do see him more as a bullpen guy, maybe a long reliever type, and maybe as a setup man. I don't know. Definitely as a closer, I think that would be electric on the South side. So I'm definitely here for it. I would hope that this is something that the White Sox continue to think about in the offseason instead of kind of throwing him out there to go through it a little bit more. Because at this point, you're not really learning anything. You're kind of just doing the same thing over again and getting hit hard each time, or just not getting outs in general. I'm hoping that there is some thorough thought going on with this behind the scenes, and I truly believe that there is, and I'm hoping to see them kind of act on it next year. Because let me tell you something, man. I want to see good things happen on the South side. Regardless of being a Cubs or Sox fan, for me, I'm a baseball fan first, and this is just everything that's unfolded on the South side this year. I'm just like, all right, well. It's kind of good to switch things up a little bit, and this kind of starts with that. Hey, maybe bring him out of the pen, and who knows? He could be electric next year. I don't know. Just an idea. I would love to see it. He has that look too. He looks like he could be a closer. He has the hair and everything. So
it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, Miles, because I was talking with Saul about this a week ago. It's been so many pitchers that started out as starters. You brought up Liam Hendriks. Mariano Rivera started out as a starter. Dennis Eckersley started out as a starter. Reynaldo Lopez started out as a starter with the White Sox, and they became elite relievers. 2 out of 3 of them in Eckersley and Rivera, who are now in the Hall of Fame, and they were shut down closers back in their heyday. I'm looking at the minor league system right now. There are a ton of pitchers in the White Sox minor league system. Kristen Maynard is in AAA Charlotte, just recently got promoted up there. Nick Nastrini, a guy that they got from the Dodgers organization. I could easily see him being a part of the White Sox starting rotation next season. if that happens alongside of Mina, who also has tremendous stuff at the age of 20 years old, it don't leave too much room for Michael Kopech to be a starting pitcher on the White Sox. So with that said, I think you do have to consider moving him to the bullpen, especially when you know at the max, you have to sign at least 3 pitchers, 3 starters, at least to solidify your starting rotation next season. Because like we talked about with baseball in the Cubs, it's a 162 game season. It's a battle of attrition. Nowadays, it takes anywhere between 8 to 10 starting pitchers just to get through a season.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And it's like, it's like it's a marathon trying to see who makes it to the very end. From each roster, it's rough out there. And I definitely agree with you, Miles. Like I definitely see Kopech is definitely an all-star closer. He just has that look to him. So hopefully they're able to work that out and he comes out a better player for it. As with the White Sox, they played a series against the Royals and they came back from 9-0 down and still lost the game. It was rough, that they weren't able to come out on top for that one. But they play, Minnesota for 4 and they take on the Nationals for 3. So, not much to play for right now, but at the same time, you see a lot of these young players in situations like Kopech. It's something worth watching, honestly, to see what's going to happen with their future and some of the players are going to play a part in next season. That'll do it for the Chicago side of things. We'll now move on to around the league, and I wanted to talk about Matt Olson, who hit his 51st home run to tie Andrew Jones for the record of most home runs in a season for the Braves. But the one thing I want to talk about is don't you guys kind of think that not enough people are talking about Matt Olson because there's guys like Acuna on the team going for MVP, Mookie Betts. Like, I feel like not a lot of people talk about Matt Olson's season. Is just his season has been ridiculous. Like I think in his last, I think it was in the last week or so. His OPS, it looked like a year. It was like 1888 or something like that. It was just it was disgusting. And I was just like, my God, like this dude's mashing. But yeah, I mean, the Braves clinched the AL East, of course, which is good for the Cubs because maybe by next week they'll start sitting guys and they won't play them against the Cubs or something. But anyways, but what do you think about that, Miles, in Matt Olson's season and just the fact that it's weird to say because as us baseball heads, like we pay attention to Matt Olson, but like other people, I feel like the general audience like may not because of like guys like Mookie Betts and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's part of that is also on the MLB in terms of how they're marketing guys.
True.
It's incredible, and I've been saying this for a few years now. Specifically last year with his first year at the Braves, it was a painful departure for Braves fans from Freddie Freeman. Understandably, Freddie Freeman was more than just a great player there. He was someone who was a leader and helped change this franchise to what brought them their dominance now. And I always said that give Matt Olson a chance. I think you just caught lightning in a bottle. I think this kind of solidifies that. I mean, what a year, honestly. Just he's an absolute tank, and he also has his batting stance that really scares me for some reason. The way he holds his hands, he just looks like he's ready to launch every single baseball. And he's a great dude, man. He's just consistent at the plate. It's almost like he has a long swing, but it's a swing that covers the entire plate from the left side. So really, that's why he's running into so many, just because he has quick hands and he's a big dude with long arms that just covers the entire plate. He knows how to just go barrel the ball and takes it where it's pitched. He's really good at turning on it too. So it's awesome. It's awesome, man, and it's great for Braves fans to feel like okay, we have another solid all-star first baseman after losing a very solid all-star first baseman. Man, it must be fun to be a Braves fan because it looked real fun when I was over there in May. Golly, they know how to party there, and so it's awesome. It's awesome, and I'm looking forward to see it. I want to see him get 60.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, another reason, and you're right about the marketing side of things. That you're right, they're not good at marketing. MLB's never been good at marketing players, but when it comes to also just the Braves in general, they're talked about so much that I think he gets lost in there as well because that lineup, as we always say, is a cheat code. When you got like Acuna, Riley, even Marcell Ozuna has 34 home runs, an
Yeah.
870 OPS. So I mean, guys like that. I mean, even like Eddie Rosario, like on another team, would be like their 3-hitter. Meanwhile, he's over here 20 home runs, 799 OPS. So they got guys just down the lineup. Just, I mean, the fact that Michael Harris the third or Michael Harris the second, he bats ninth is just crazy to me, and it's just unfair. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons why people aren't talking about him that much. But yeah, I mean, and you mentioned with his stance is it's a very imposing stance, is what I call it, because he's just like, even when you face him in like MLB The Show, it's just like you're like, dude, like this guy could hit anything. But Gabe, what do you think about? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Gabe, what do you think about the Matt Olson season, as well as just how kind of under the radar he is, I guess you could say.
It's funny we're talking about this because I had a conversation with a friend of mine who knows how big of a Atlanta Braves fan I am and a Ronald Acuna fan I am. And he was asking me, do I think Matt Olson has a case for National League MVP? And he was, listing off reasons why. I said, I can't argue against it. And I do think the reason why a lot of people don't know who he is because he's not really a flashy guy. He just goes out there and does his damn job. And then you combine that with the point that Miles alluded to in Major League Baseball, not really doing the best of job of marketing his players, at least since the mid-2000s. And that's why you have a situation such as this. I also saw a tweet about a couple weeks ago when the Braves were in Los Angeles playing the Dodgers, and Mookie and Acuna were having, monster game ones in that 4-game series in which the Braves took 3 out of 4 going into Labor Day weekend, where a guy was like, man, Matt Olson is on pace to hit 50 plus home runs. And no one's talking about it. No one's talking about it. And it goes to what you said, Saul. This lineup is so damn deep. Miles said he had the pleasure of watching the Braves in May. I had the pleasure of watching them in Wrigleyville in August. And I saw one of 51 home runs from Matt Olson. And it's crazy, like when he's up at the plate, the game can change at any given instant. Like I saw him take Kopech yard down in the Battery in July coming off the All-Star break when he walked the bases loaded. And it's like, this is a guy, man, that you have to be very careful with. And the guys that he has up at the top of the order, such as Acuna, Ozzie Albies, and these boys, man, like Atlanta, man, what they have done is they have built a model of consistency. And it's kind of reminiscent of the 90s Braves teams. The only difference is the 90s Braves did it with pitching. They doing it with hitting. And if I didn't know nothing about baseball, I probably would think the Braves are an American League team with the way that they hit and they slug, man. Yep. Because when you talk about a guy like Marcell Ozuna having 34 home runs, like, man, that's why they never out of a ball game. Mm-hmm. And I like just what Atlanta's done, man. And Alex Anthopoulos, man, is just incredible. But yeah, Matt Olson is a guy that deserves a lot of love and praise. And I would put him top 3 in NL MVP voting. I still would give the MVP award to Acuna, but I think he's a top 3 guy. And if you voted him 2 or 3, I wouldn't be mad at that. And my friend, like, even over Freddie Freeman, I said, I wouldn't be mad because he's putting up numbers that we have not seen from power hitters since the 90s. These are the type of numbers that attract the casual fan to baseball.
Yeah, you're right. I think, that like on top of him being a great player, I mean, you just see he's a great guy too as well. Like, and just, he could be easily, without some of these guys in the league, easily could be one of the faces of baseball, but there's just so many. And I think it's a good problem to have, but at the same time, you think MLB would just be better in general of, marketing these guys, because Atlanta truly, right now seems like America's team, because, nobody really necessarily hates them or anything like that. Like, it's not like the Astros with Correa and all that, like back in the day. Like, no, like I don't see anybody having a problem with, Ronald Acuna. And the thing is, even Acuna, you can make an argument to be like, oh, like this guy talks a lot of smack, but dude, he backs it up. with something and more. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why some people don't have a problem with that. But the last thing I did want to talk about is one of the main stories today is the fact that the Red Sox fired GM Chaim Bloom. And man, I mean, this is, I think, to be honest, you can make an argument this has been a while in the making because it should have been done maybe a while ago because he was the guy, of course, who traded, and he'll always be remembered as the guy who traded Mookie Betts to the Dodgers for, you can make an argument, nothing. So it's disappointing for the Red Sox in the sense of they could have gotten another GM, and they could have been in a different spot, but they have a very good chance of finishing in last again. So yeah, we'll start with you, Miles. What are your thoughts on Chaim Bloom being let go from the Red Sox, and just like his history with the Red Sox, what he did to the organization, where the spot he left him in, because it's not necessarily a good one. I mean, you have Rafael Devers, and you still need a lot more of that to compete. I mean, they got hot for a little bit, and were able to climb into the wild card standings and look like they had a shot for a while. And then they did something really weird, which kind of like buy and sell. It was really, I don't know, it was really confusing at the deadline. So what are your thoughts on this firing of Chaim Bloom?
What good did he do for the Red Sox?
No, I mean, nothing.
Basically, I don't know about that
nothing.
personally, but on the major league level, yeah, you could definitely say that. He cost them a lot of guys that were key members of their core as well.
Yeah, and really, that's what I'm alluding to. It's just in terms of the guys that are at the top level. I was always very confused in terms of which direction is he trying to take this team in. I was very confused when it came to Trevor Story. I'm like, okay, we let Bogarts walk. Okay. And then I remember at one point they almost lost Devers during the offseason as well. Had they not re-signed him the way they did. And I'm like, hey man, let's talk. What are you trying to do here? Where are you trying to where are you trying to take this historical team that has been built on tradition of winning and very like hard-nosed, kind of tough baseball? What are you trying to do? And so, it's just things like that where I'm like, all right, well, this is a long time coming, and good for Red Sox Nation, man, and whoever steps up next, and I'm hoping it's just. I understand that there's a business side to baseball, but if you got good ball players, I think you should do your best to keep them around as long as you can. If they're producing, I just, I don't know what went into his thinking, and whatever the case may be. Kind of like you said, they lost a lot to get a lot of nothing. Firing him now is kind of weird to me because I don't know. I feel like you had the off season to kind of make some of these decisions, but hopefully the whoever steps up next is kind of able to turn this thing around, because the Sox aren't. I don't know. They could be very good next year. They weren't. We got off to kind of a weird season this year, but like you said, they crawled into the wild card standings again. And I don't know. I am praying for the Red Sox. That is also my second favorite team.
Yeah, and Gabe kind of he said he didn't know about. I mean, you're right in the sense of like the one thing they did say was he was good at drafting, right? And he drafted some prospects. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you can't fix the MLB team, I mean, that's your main job at the end of the day. You can't just, be like, hey, look, I got these guys in the minors cooking. Like, they can't give you forever. And, with the Red Sox team that looked like they could compete this year, and as Miles says, you're right, they could compete next year. Who knows how things go, especially with the Red Sox. You never know. Next year they could win the World Series, and I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. So we'll see. But, I mean, some of the things, like, I just don't, understand. I understand that that he didn't do 100% terrible job. But at the same time, I don't understand why there's so many people defending this guy, because, like, Jeff Passan had a tweet where it was like over the 15-year stretch during they won 4 World Series here with Red Sox payroll ranks in those 4 years were second, third, and first. And over the last 4 years, they have been under the CBT 3 times, and under their payroll this year, their payroll is 11th. But it was the GM's fault. Like, I don't know like, I don't really know why. Like, I've seen plenty of GMs do something even without that. But I mean, that's just my opinion. But Gabe, what are your thoughts on this situation? Because it looks like there's when it comes to Red Sox Twitter, at least, it looks like there's a little bit of people saying it's not fully his fault, but at the same time, other people saying he should have been gone, and then other people were like they didn't give him enough of a chance. So where do you stand in this whole thing?
I'm in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
One, because I don't have that big of a vested interest in it, but I do know who Chaim Bloom is, and I know what he built in Tampa, and I know the way that he did it. He did it by being a methodical guy, a guy that was patient, a guy that was always willing to rebuild and stockpile on assets down on the farm while still trying to have a competitive major league roster. When he was bought into Boston, he was the guy that was the exact opposite of David Dombrowski, who didn't give a damn to trade prospects away for top tier all-stars in the pursuit of world championships, which he bought to Boston in 2018, courtesy of the Chris Sale trade, among a few other trades. I think the thing that did Chaim Bloom in the most was the way in which his major league team performed at the big league level. When you have 4 years in office, and 3 out of those 4 years, you're either in last place or at the bottom of the American League East Division in Boston, which is the opposite of Tampa Bay, that's not good. Why? Because there are expectations there. That fan base expects to see a winner each and every year. You add that on top of the fact that he didn't do good with the Mookie Betts trade, even though he got Alex Verdugo, who was a high touted prospect coming up in the Dodgers organization. He hasn't panned out into the player in which they thought he would become. So that's like another thing that's on his resume that hurts him surviving in Boston. Then you have Brian O'Halloran, a guy that's well thought of in the Red Sox organization behind you, who they're going to promote from general manager into a higher elevated position within the baseball ops department. So he just had a lot to overcome. And outside of the 2021 season, in which the Red Sox won the wild card, advanced to the ALCS where they got knocked out by Houston, that was the only year in which they made the playoffs. So, like, he just didn't have that in his favor. But what he did do, and I think the reason why you see some people defending him, he stockpiled on talent in the farm system. Kyle Teal, their first round draft pick out of Virginia this year, is a guy who has a tremendous pop time behind the plate and is an incredible hitter. He will be up in a couple of years. Cedane Rafaela, you see him right now. He's one of their top prospects. Roman Anthony is a guy that I like, who's been
Marcelo Meyer too.
High A.
Marcelo Meyer too.
Yeah, Marcelo Meyer, their top prospect. Like, they have some guys that are solid. And my first immediate thought when he got fired was, this is why White Sox fans were mad. And this is why White Sox fans wanted to have a due diligence when it came to the process of hiring a single decision maker to lead the baseball operations front. If I'm Chris Getz and I want to bring in outside people, and I know my farm system hasn't been the best, and I know I want to make strides in the international scouting department and bring in top tier talent from the likes of Latin America and beyond here, I want Chaim Bloom. And if I'm any other organization that seeks to have those same aspirations and win, I want him, because I know he can win off of a budget. But with the Red Sox, he couldn't win for losing there because of the way that the big league team performed. Letting Mookie Betts go, and then, by the way, Xander Bogaerts left Boston for San Diego, which, even though they gave him a bunch of millions to leave, that's a tough blow. And I know fans on the East Coast don't take that real well at all.
Yeah, and you're right. Gabe actually didn't even put two and two together when it came to Chaim Bloom. Like, honestly, he left Boston, leaves that stuff there, but what he did in Tampa is different, right? So I'll still give him a chance. I don't care. He's still a young guy in the business.
He's gonna get a job.
Yeah, he's gonna be fine. So But like, if the White Sox get him, that would be a huge get in my opinion, because another thing that people were saying when it comes to the people that were defending Chaim Bloom, they were saying that he didn't get enough time as other GMs got, like compared to other GMs. So that would be, I could understand that a little bit more of a defense for him, and yeah, give him a shot in on the South Side. Why not, right? But yeah, other things around the league that have come out. I mean, Max Scherzer is gonna be out for the rest of the season. Sandy Alcantara, who I mentioned last week, went to the IL. He has a UCL sprain, so who knows what's gonna happen for the rest of the season. He's day to day though. But these races are just gonna get hotter and hotter as more and more of these players either come back from injury or go on the injured list and all that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's a good place to wrap things up for this week. At Bat Podcast presented by War Media. I want to thank my hosts and Gabriel Wilkins, of course, as well as Miles Porter. I want to thank everyone for watching. Once again, check out all our stuff on War Media. Slam Society is out. We're going to be in the Bears Den every week, for Bears coverage and all of that with Sports Zone Chicago as well. So definitely check us out, as well as our Substack as well. Going to be a lot of people writing for, whether it be the Bears, whether it be, WNBA, all that stuff. So check out all that content. Like I said, thank you for watching, and we'll see everybody next week.